Hello, my lovely audience. Welcome to another video. Welcome to what if Izuku was, reincarnation of Gyokko. Yeah, sorry for the pause. Had a burp in my chest. Anyway, so I bet you're all wondering, hey, Metal Leader, why are you doing this? What if? Well, just gonna say this now. I'm a fan of atrocities. I am a fan of H.P. Lovecraft. Absurdly so. Just horrific crimes against humanity and nature just seem to make my day. That wasn't a joke. Yeah. So, anyway. Yeah, I've had this what if in the woodworks for a while. Decided to do it. So, let's get on with it. I have a splitting headache, help. But yeah, he would bring a pot in. Eerie would be confused. It's a very nice pot, as he would just put the pot down on a table and walk out. So, Eerie would just begin venting, to the pot. She would just, begin venting, Mr. Pot? Hello, Mr. Pot, do you know why my life is so shitty? She would begin venting to the pot. As well, the pot would begin, to wobble, as a voice could be heard from inside the pot. No there, a little girl. I have no idea why your life is so shitty. Now, may I ask you, who are you and where am I? I'm Eerie, and you're at the Yakuza base. Oh, huh. Makes sense. So then, mind telling me what the fuck's going on? He would get a pillow thrown at his face as she would say, language. Oh, sorry. Eri would cross her arms and puff out her cheeks when you introduce yourself to someone, you have to say your name as well. Oh, well, I'm Izuku Midoriya, but my friends call me Gyokko, and I will allow you to call me Gyokko. Okay, Gyokko, why do you look like that? Oh, you wanna know why? You sure you can handle it? Yeah? You sure you can handle a tale of sorrow and horrific disfiguration? That's my daily life. Oh. Well, that sucks. Anyway, let me regale you in my tale. So, now, this is right around, I'd say, few months, not months, like a week after the sports festival. Not the portion with Erie in it, just the arena, just the combat. Just that, just the tournament. Todoroki's female. I know I make a lot of, Deku X female Todorokis lately. I don't give a shit. I find it pleasant. I don't know why I keep on doing it, I just think that it's nice. So, yeah. Shota. Yep, it's a Shota in this What If as well. Don't know why I do so many, but yeah. Anyway, so, yeah. Anyway, Stain fight happens, blah blah blah. Everyone is extremely confused at, the sudden boost in power. Let's say, Izuku's not shattering his limbs anymore. Along with that, Deku's limbs have been growing, regenerating much quicker than canon. Like, each time he does it, each time he shatters his arm, it seems to regenerate quicker and quicker until, he goes from having a fully shattered arm to having a completely fine one in about a day. So, everyone's confused on that. So, Shigaraki being Shigaraki would just Adobe Prime. Yes, the ultimate evil tool, Adobe Prime. So essentially what he would do is take some security camera footage of, the Stain versus Ida fight, and Izuku and Todoroki, and Adobe Prime, stock images of each other's faces just around so it looks like Izuku was working with Stain. Along with that, he would have would have Toga turn into Izuku a few times, have her shake his hand, have him running around with documents, just the whole 9 yards. You would send all this information to the dumbest person in UA, Denki Kaminari, and just sit back and let Izuku get beamed to a pulp. So then, majority of Class 1A would believe this because, Denki's their trusted friend, and, yeah. Todoroki and, Todoroki, Ida, those are the only two who are like, wait a minute, why would Izuku be working with Stain? He helped us beat the shit out of him. Everyone would just ignore them. So, here's what happens to Izuku. My eyes are watering. In case you're wondering, yes, I do like torturing Izuku. I like those kinds of stories where the main character is just absolutely down on his luck. Hey, my headache's getting better. Anyway, yeah. So, here's what happens to him. Sato would knock him the fuck out. Just swing batter. Knock him the fuck out. They would wake him up. Here's what happens. Mina, yes, pure girl Mina, would use her acid on his face, causing his face to burn off, and his eye to slide down into his mouth, along with the slit created in his forehead, once again by the acid. He would proceed to scream in agony as, Mayonetta and Tape Man, I forgot his name, would tie Deku to a wall as Sato and Shoji, I think it is, the one constantly wearing a mask and has octopus limbs. Yeah, him. I think he's named Shoji. The two of them would work together, ripping Izuku in half. Well, not physically ripping him in half. His skin's still connecting him. They would just, dislocate his spine. Yeah, they would just sever his spine, sever a large amount of his arteries, and just kind of half rip him in half, as you would say. He's still connected by muscle and skin, but his spine and arteries going downwards are not right. They would also do this with his arms, extending it. Go-Go Gadget extendo arms. Ah! It's like if Inspector Gadget could feel pain. So, yeah. That happens. Uraraka would just float a few knives and bricks above him and drop them on him. He would try and scream, but the eyeball in his throat is kind of making it difficult. By the way, the nerve connecting the eyeball and the brain are still intact, which means he can still see and feel everything, and it fucking hurts. Now, kind of difficult for me to figure out what the others would do without flat out killing him. So, by this point, Aizawa would walk in. They're doing in, like, the classroom. He would walk in with, like, donuts. Aizawa would walk in with donuts, like, okay, President Mike said I need to be nicer to... He would drop the donuts. What the fuck? He would just yell that, staring at Izuku's, like, somewhat, like, barely living corpse. Barely living body. He's just on the ground, profusely bleeding from every hole. Yeah, his eyes are in his mouth and forehead. He's like, there's blood coming out of his mouth as well, so his vision's tainted red. Like, it's a fucking scene and a half. His arms are, like, more mangled than you can ever imagine. He's just there. His gaze, like, he can barely move. He's, like, paralyzed from the pain. He's just kind of looking at Aizawa with a forced smile plastered on his face, as, like, blood's pouring from all of his holes. President Mike would walk in, like, hey there, little listener! He would fall over. President Mike would just fall over, look at Izuku, scream, and then fall over. Like, not even a small scream, like, he got a full-on noise complaint for across the country type beat. Everyone would hear this, cover their ears, except for Izuku, who can't, as his eardrums would violently explode, causing blood to also begin pouring out of his ears. He can't catch a break. Aizawa would just pick him up and begin running, like, holy fucking shit. Denki would look around like, did we do a bad? Mina would just wave him off, like, no, he's the traitor, I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, people are screaming and falling over unconscious when they see Izuku, as, like, they're running by. Aizawa would kick down the door, like, recovery girl, we need some help. Recovery girl would just walk in with, like, a tray, full of whatever the hell, like, pills or something, like, okay, I got your sleeping medication. Holy shit! She would drop the tray. Aizawa would feel kind of sad that his sleeping medication was just dropped on the floor, but he would then focus up and, like, save him. I'll try my best. Like, okay, time skip, a few hours. Aizawa's, like, tapping his foot on the ground, looking at Class 1A, pissed the fuck off. The only people who were not there, Shota and Ida, are also, like, with Aizawa, looking at them, tapping their feet on the ground, pissed the fuck off. Shinso is also there. Hell, they even pissed off Monoma. Like, they pissed off Monoma and the entirety of Class 1B. Monoma's just there, like, I knew you 1A pieces of shit were retarded, but I did not know this to this degree. This is a fucking Adobe Primed! It says it in the corner, made by Adobe Prime. The fuck? Everyone would just kind of look at Denki, slowly turn their head at him. Well, what about the pictures? Yeah, we reviewed them, and, and we thought you could have had some solid evidence until we realized that Izuku was not only lacking his scars, but there are also people in the LOV capable of cloning and or shape-shifting, so that evidence doesn't really hold up either. Denki would just say, fuck. Bakugo, who did not participate in the beating of Izuku, he was asleep, would just break down the door. Yeah, Bakugo wasn't there either. Like, Shota, Ida, and Bakugo, those are the three people that did not fucking torture him. Bakugo would break down the door like, where the fuck is Izuku? Oh, you're calling him by his name. Like, everyone would look at him like, oh, you're calling him by his name. Neat. But, like, Bakugo would just say, who gives a fuck about that? Where the fuck is he? Aizawa would just point behind him. Bakugo would, like, run up to the glass of the operating room, and then he would proceed to throw up. Oh my fucking goodness. Shinso would look in like, I'm sure it's not that bad. Like, he would bend over and vomit. The two of them would vomit into a trash can. As Monoma would just raise his hands up like, I ain't looking. Mina would step up like, Sensei, but we didn't know my ass. Like, if he's a suspect, you don't torture him. You arrest him, turn him into the authorities, and put him on trial. No, you went ahead and went the full-on World War II route. Clearly deciding to make your ancestors proud, I guess. Like, Class 1A would just feel bad at that remark. Like, fuck. Like, how even World War II torture tactics weren't that bad. Because they were trying to get information out of them. They were alive. No, you burned his face off, preventing him from being able to explain himself, then ripped his spinal cord from his body, essentially paralyzing him from the waist down, horrifically mangled his hands so they are barely usable, and teared an absolutely absurd amount of arteries, causing him to bleed out from the inside out. Does that sound very heroic? Does it? Like, Aizawa's properly livid right now. Like, properly livid. It will take nothing short of a miracle. It will take nothing short of a miraculous quirk mutation / awakening where he spontaneously gains the ability to have full control over all the cells in his body. But that is absolutely absurd and ridiculous. There's no way in Recovery Girl would kick down the door like, Izuku's made a miraculous recovery. It seems like his quirk is fully awakened, giving him full control over all the cells in his body. Aizawa would just look at her. Aizawa would just look at Recovery Girl like, then he would look at his hands and then say, It's raining money from the sky. Aizawa would look around the room and say, It's raining money from the sky. Recovery Girl would be confused. Monoma would step in like, he just predicted that exact thing, saying how unlikely it is. Oh. Like, Aizawa would just look around and say, oh, it's not raining money from the sky. Everyone just hears the sound of outside as, like, Aizawa would open the curtains and it's raining money. It's fucking raining money. There are people who are having, like, quarters dropped on their heads. They're like dollar bills falling from the sky. Uraraka's eyes would just turn into dollar signs as like Aizawa would look at his hands like, I have ascended past this mortal realm. I guess Aizawa has a new quirk. Yeah, he can just say what's not gonna happen and it's gonna happen. He can just state the obvious now and the obvious will not happen. Huh. Neat. Aizawa is like looking at his hands, a new found form of power. So, time skip, a few months. No, a week. Zuko's been quote-unquote recovering, but in reality he's just been fucking learning how his new quirk works. His new quirk, how it works. He's been learning how it works, and essentially, he's able to utilize his cells to a perfect degree. He can alter his cells any way he wants, and essentially make things out of his own cells. Like, for example, taking a pot made from bones of, like, animals or people or something like that. Pot made from something alive. Spread his cells through it, and bada bing, bada boom, you have gyokko. So, yeah. Anyway, start of the school day. Class 1A would turn up into class. The only reason they were not put on the death sentence for war crimes is because Hero Society is a bunch of corrupt assholes who seem to think that the decency of your quirk determines your value, so thus they have pretty decent quirks and could become good heroes, so they weren't put on death sentence. Along with a bit of bribery from, Momo. A little bit of bribery. Never hurt anyone. And they're alive. Give me a moment. I am back. So, yeah. A little bit of bribery from Momo, and they're fine. I don't know. Aizawa has a brand new pot on his table. It's a very nice pot, very well made. In this What If, Izuku took up pottery at, like, the age of 11. He took pottery classes, and it's become his hobby. Along with writing in his notebooks and gawking over All Might, it's his hobby to make pots. Very nice pots. He gave a few to Ida and Todoroki and Uraraka, who he now regrets giving the pots to. Also a few to Bakugo. Bakugo may not be able to admit it, but he kind of likes the pots. Anyway, Mizuku gave, Aizawa a new pot. Everyone would comment about how nice it is. Aizawa would just tell them to fuck off, as he would sit down and say, "Alright, you fucking class of absolute dipshits, not you, Ida, not you, Shota, and not you, Bakugo, the rest of y'all. Guess who's back? Back again. Guess who's back? Tell a friend. Izuku's back." Like, the pot would just begin singing, "Guess who's back? Back again. Izuku's back. Tell a friend. Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back?" As this would burst from the pot. As everyone is just looking at this like, oh. Mina has, like, World War flashbacks of how she horrifically burnt off Izuku's face. Izuku would look at Aizawa like, "I thought there would be a lot less of them in here. A brand new class, a brand new year. just restarting everything, I guess. I was expecting, like, Monoma and Shinso and, you know, everyone else who I like to actually be in here. Like Bakugo and Shota and Ida. I was not expecting her. He would just point at Eurorica. She would just get all sad, remembering how she violently stabbed Izuku, causing his organs to spill out of his stomach. Yeah, you know, what's a bit of violent stabbing between friends and causing organs to spill across the floor? What's wrong with seeing your friend's kidneys? She would just shudder at the memory. Like everyone's staring at Izuku and how he looks now. And all of them are getting PTSD of how they horrifically mangled him. Looking at his weird baby arms, like Sado and Shoji would just remember how they ripped his arms, like causing them to forcefully extend. Sado may or may not have ripped his arm in half a few times, causing them to be reduced to this. Zuko would just look at them like, hopefully you will get expelled, so that way, Monoma and his friends can be in here. Because I fucking hate you all. Well, not you, Bakugo, and Ida, and Shota. The rest of you, I hope, go die in ditches. Anyway, I'm going to my seat now. Like he would just retract into the pot, roll off the table, just roll to a seat, jump up in the pot, and then he would just, like, eh. Then he would just jump onto the table and poke his head out, like so. He would just do that. Everyone's staring at him. As he would say, "Stop staring before I rip out your tongues." Everyone would just look at Aizawa then, at that statement. Anyway, so, yeah. Zuko's become much more cold to his class, except for, like, Ida, Bakugo, and Shota. He's become actually pretty good friends with Monoma and Class 1B. Finds them to be a nice group of people. As you can guess, they were all pretty livid at Class 1A once they learned why Izuku is, like so, from, like, Monoma. And, like, Kendo was trying to, like, defuse the situation until they saw how he looks. And then she just, like, joined the angry mob. Let's say Class 1A was almost burnt down, by a certain, lolly. But yeah, Zuko's personality has almost entirely flipped on its head. He's now a much more, like, Bakugo-ish person. Like, for example, someone's, like, staring at his face and he would look at them and say, "Oh, I see you're enamored by my good looks, hey? Maybe we can go out sometime." And then that person would shuffle away uncomfortably. He would laugh at them, and then, like, return to his conversation with Monoma, or someone random. But Shota being Shota, would just know. She doesn't know how. She would just know that Izuku is not okay. He's not okay. He is not okay whatsoever. So, one night, whilst Izuku's just kind of out on the balcony, as it turns out, his new quirk, or mutation of his old one, everyone thinks that, like, he was using his quirk before to kind of just pressure, like, kind of spring lock his fists, punching forwards, and, the traumatic experience that he just experienced unlocked the quirk's full potential. everyone who doesn't know about One for All thinks that. He still has it, just stopped using it all that much. Yeah. Also, because of his new anatomy, he can't go out in the sun. Cells are too far apart. Solar radiation just turns him to dust. In other words, he burns like a vampire. So, yeah. Anyway, one night he's just out looking at the moon, sulking. Shota would turn up like, give me a moment. She would turn up like, Izuku, I said, call me Gyokko. He'd kind of get annoyed. Shota would just walk up to him I'm not hurt, I've never been better. I mean, look at me. I'm look at my death. I mean, really, I was better. Shota would hug him, like, feel free to cry. You let me get out all my emotions out on you, so feel free to cry. I don't. Zuku's mouths would essentially just move back down to the bottom of his face, as his eyes would move back to their original positions. The words Upper Moon 5 still inside of them, and his eyes are still yellow. His hair would go from this, like, weird scales to they would poof outwards into a green mob. Like this. His hair would poof out like Canon Izuku. His hair would poof out like Canon. Sorry, burp. His hair would poof out like Canon Izuku as he would just begin sobbing and crying. His arms would return to normalcy. Technically, they look like this. His arms would turn into that as he would just grab her so hard she thinks he might end up crushing her as he just begins bawling his eyes out. Like Class 1B who came along, who just came along because they also wanted to see if Izuku's fine. Like, there are certain people, silently cheering Shota and Izuku on. I forgot the lady's name, but it's the Mina of Class 1B. Mina of Class 1B, the lady with very Mina-ish personality, as you would say, is just recording Kendo's, giving a thumbs up to Todoroki. Monoma is just kind of a vein pops on his forehead, I just got a new best friend and he's already getting a girl? Come on! I just made that friend! He's just kind of overprotective older brother mode initiates. Overprotective older brother mode initiates. His eyes glow red, and Kendo just knocks him the fuck out. Yeah, but Monoma has essentially become an overprotective older brother to Izuku, along with Ida and Shinso. They're the only people he's comfortable to be, just regular old Izuku with. Well, that list just grew because, Todoroki just managed to nestle herself into that. And then Izuku would start selling pots. A guy with a weird mask would come along and buy a pot. Izuku's pretty suspicious of him. He would just kind of go inside of the pot that the guy bought. And then he ended up with Eri. Anyway, Izuku would finish telling Eri his tale. Eri's crying, oh my goodness, that's so sad. I feel like I just listened to a soap opera. Yeah, that's pretty much my life. So then, May I ask, what's your story? What's with the scars and all? Eri would inform Izuku, and now he's, like, crying from his mouth, like, oh my goodness, that is so sad. Do you want me to torture him? What do you mean by torture him? Like, silently torture him. Just make his life in general living hell. Without him realizing it at all. Eri would just nod. So Izuku would begin making Overhaul's life absolutely shitty. It would begin inconveniencing him at every turn, every point of his life. He would begin inconveniencing Overhaul. Just figured out a massive breakthrough in the cork erasing drug. Uh-oh, your glass of water spills over onto the paper. Uh-oh, you just fell off your bike. Uh-oh, you just tripped on nothing. Overhaul's life would just begin sucking. So one night, Zuko would decide, you know those dreams where you feel like you're drowning? A pot would grow out of his, a water pot, like ocean kind of pot, would just grow out of one of his baby hands, as water would just shoot out of it, hitting Overhaul and essentially trapping him in a giant pot. Overhaul would see Izuku just kinda there, looking at him, smiling. Overhaul would begin trying to deconstruct the water and, the bed, but he can't, because the water's preventing him from moving. So he's just stuck there until he passes out. Give me a moment. Okay, so, yeah, Izuku just, drowns Overhaul. He fucking chokes the shit out of him until Overhaul passes out. Once Overhaul passes out, Izuku would just kind of subtract all the water to the point where Overhaul's, perfectly clean. No water on him whatsoever, put him in bed, and then just leave. So Overhaul thinks it was just a nightmare. Yeah, he does that. Anyway, goodbye, my lovely, lovely audience. I hope you enjoyed. I hope to see you next time. I had a lot of fun with this What If. Goodbye. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.